This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily on a glorious day here in the Peg on the final day of May. Great to have you all with us. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis for the next couple hours. Got a busy show today. We're going to head down to South Florida. Not too many individuals. You can talk Stanley Cup Final in the market as well as the upcoming CFL season. But we got a guy. Our pal Rod Pedersen's going to jump on. Rod getting ready for the Panthers and Golden Knights down in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. And Rod also all over the Canadian Football League season. So a perfect time to get Hot Rod in on the program. Looking forward to that. We're also going to have Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Had a chance to sit right by Scott for the big Sea Bears opener on the weekend. Look forward to getting his take on what he saw that night, as well as a little bit more on the offseason in the National Hockey League and the long to-do list for Kevin Cheveldayoff. And a little different than normal. Often we speak with the great Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on Friday, but we got a couple things already planned for Friday, setting up game one of the finals, and of course, Bomber preseason action. So the Saw is going to join us today. Some interesting news around the National Football League. We'll also talk maybe a little bit of baseball and get Lee's thoughts on the finals in both the Stanley Cup and the National Basketball Association. Great to have you all with us, folks. If you're just finding us right now, welcome to the show and the program. Hit that red subscribe button for those of you that have found us on YouTube. We're here every day, 1 p.m. Central Time. And, of course, give us a thumbs up while you're here on YouTube. If you do want to find the audio podcast, for those of you who are on YouTube, get on over to your favorite podcast feed and just simply search Winnipeg Sports Talk. And join us. Basically, we got that thing ready for you about 3:30, just in time for your ride home, for those of you that jump on the audio feed of the program. Just before we bring in Remo, a big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our great partners at Coolbet, Princess Auto, Assiniboia Downs, and the Winnipeg Goldeyes, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershops, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Vita Health, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Consolidated Supply, Breezy Bend, Aikens Lake, and of course, Little Brown Jug, who I did mention at the end of the show, but if you missed it yesterday, great news for Bomber fans. Little Brown Jug, an official partner of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and 1919 will be available. Their flagship brand at Bomber games beginning this Friday when the team hosts the Saskatchewan Roughriders for the final preseason action before next Friday and the home opener against Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Let's get to it and get Michael Remis in here. Remo, what's going on? How are you?
I'm feeling good. It's a hot one out there again, but here I am in my basement in a hoodie. Feels weird, but I guess I'll take it. But I see a lot of people in chat has today, right off the top, reminding everyone, May 31, it's the 12th anniversary of the return of the Winnipeg Jets. I gotta be honest, I don't know how much this was on my radar. I remember like the first year, anniversary, the second year. We're into year 12, and I don't know, the Jets have caused a lot of people to pull their hair out over the last couple of years here, but I think we all are appreciative of having the team back in the city, and it does bring back some positive memories thinking about this day where you were 12 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, for all the consternation and the takes that people have on what's happening with the club, May 31st is always a day I think we can, to your point, be thankful that we've got these conversations. We've got a team to pull our hair out about. Certainly would be nice if the team was still playing right now, but there's 30 teams in the National Hockey League that don't have that opportunity, and only the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be dropping the puck and playing for hockey's ultimate prize. But it is interesting when you think back to, 12 years ago, that press conference downtown at the time, I believe, was still MTS Center, with Commissioner Gary Bettman, of course, Mark Chipman, David Thompson, and one of the most historic days in the history of sports in our city. And, listen, it's 12 years later. There's been some highs, there's been some lows. And despite, I think, obviously some real challenges for the organization right now and trying to re-energize the fan base and get a few more butts in seats and certainly build up maybe that corporate support that was cited as a real area that they needed to improve on. The bottom line is we're a member of the National Hockey League, one of the smallest markets, and still enjoying everything that comes with having a team. And I'll tell you what, we're talking a lot about, this upcoming final. There's a lot going on around the league right now. But in these 12 years of Winnipeg Jets hockey, since, 12 years ago today, I'm not sure that we have a more interesting month ahead of us at any point in the last 12 years than what's to come in June, based on everything that's happened with this club over the last few seasons and the obvious contract situations with some of the most important players on the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, yeah. And it started off, was it a couple weeks ago in The Athletic, where Michael Russo and Eric Duhatschek had, a number of Jets, 4 of the 8 spots on their trade list. And we haven't really seen any other trade lists this offseason. We're occupied by the Jets, so we're kind of waiting for something to happen. Although I do see people in chat who seem convinced that they're just going to bring everyone back and try it again this year. I'm not sure how you do that with a couple guys, a year away from free agency.
And then just lose everybody back. Like, I hear those takes. How? How do you do that? Listen, I certainly, and I don't think there's many people plugged in that think that is the way the Winnipeg Jets are going to go, or frankly, or they can't. We can talk about their patience when it comes to situations, and I've certainly made the point for a long time that I think the amount of time it's taken to make some moves on a couple of these key players maybe will hamper the return of what would have been available a year or a year two ago. Obviously, I'm speaking about specifically Mark Scheifele, but potentially Pierre-Luc Dubois as well, considering he is likely on the way out. But all that being said, Remo, there is going to be some huge decisions by this organization. And I would imagine that the majority of the day right now for the general manager and Winnipeg Jets management, in addition to preparing for the draft and free agency, a lot of calls with agents as well as probably other general managers. And now I don't expect anything really to happen, to be honest, for the next couple of weeks. But I can tell you what, the second that Stanley Cup is handed out to either the captain of the Vegas Golden Knights or the Florida Panthers, I think then the dominoes start to drop. And like we talked yesterday with Mike, I'm not sure that all this stuff can even wait until the week in Nashville, because you've got free agency 2 days after the draft on the 1st of July, on the Saturday of that week. And we're talking about the future of Dubois, of Mark Scheifele, of Connor Hellebuck. Those 3 key parts of the Winnipeg Jets, and deals involving any of those players don't just happen overnight. And I think that's a big part of everything that is happening behind the scenes right now, as they try to see what the best offers are and decide the best course of action when it comes to these very important assets.
Yeah, I agree. They're having meetings, they're having conversations, evaluating their options, all the things that General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff says they do before making such a big franchise-changing decision. And I imagine stuff's going to ramp up after the Cup Final, before the draft, and maybe even before free agency. It's funny, we were talking with Ken last week about possible trade partners, and he suggested Carolina, and that's another team where Don Waddell came out and said, hey, they're going to have to look at, said they look at some trades. So I don't know if there's a fit there. I was like, I'm not exactly sure, but there's going to be activity. Although the only activity right now is with the front office and behind the bench, but for the Jets, pretty clear. They got those positions settled in. Bonus coming back. Cheveldayoff's the GM, and it's all the players. The core four? What are we calling this group of four guys 1 year away from free agency? At RFA or UFA, you got Dubois, Scheifele, Wheeler, Hellebuck, but also we haven't even talked about Dillon and DeMello, who also have a year remaining. And I do wonder if and we've talked about the need to move a defenseman too. It's kind of put on the back burner, away from these guys. You have, 6D already, plus Logan Stanley, Billy Hainala, and Declan Chisholm. Are you going to have another? It's become like a verb. You're going to have a Kovacevic go on with Declan Chisholm. What's going to happen there? So I think, aside from those core four, or whatever the name is, you do have other guys who could be in the mix too.
Yeah, listen, the blue line is something that doesn't get maybe the attention that a Scheifele, a Dubois, a Hellebuck situation gets, but it is a big, big part of the equation. And, there are some assets the Winnipeg Jets are going to have to manage differently this year. And that is all just part of the challenges. The one thing I'll say that hopefully works in the Jets' favor is the fact that the free agent class is so relatively weak to what we've seen in previous years. And the fact that there won't be those sort of players on the market right now to get simply for cash, I think might make a little bit more of an energetic trade market, if you will, and hopefully that's a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets, considering the assets that they may very well have to move out. We'll talk more about this later on. And just quickly, Reem, I hit you with this beforehand. Here's your why not question of the day, folks. If you're with us on YouTube, no looking, who can tell me who the longest tenured general manager is in the National Hockey League? I'll give you a hint. It's not Kevin Cheveldayoff. He's the second longest tenured GM, but now with Barry Trotz taking over for David Poile, there's only one GM in the National Hockey League that's been on the job for longer than Kevin Cheveldayoff. Who is that? Get us up in the why not question of the day. Let us know in the chat. All right, really looking forward to getting Rod Pedersen on here in just a second. Talk a little Cup Final, as well as the upcoming CFL season with Rod, and I'm sure he's got takes on a whole bunch of other things as well. But I do want to thank our friends at Modern Man Barber Shops, who just had a big grand opening for the new Plessis location on the weekend. Modern Man Barber Shops is now 8 locations in Winnipeg, so there's somewhere convenient around you to get the best haircuts and services for men, including cuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com, and you can follow them on Instagram at Modern Man Barber Shops. With this gorgeous weather right now, everyone's feeling summer. The CFL is back right now, and it feels like summer with these temperatures. Make 2023 the year you take the plunge with Aquatech. Visit aqua-tech.ca to design your own custom pool. Their team can provide on-the-spot pricing from designers as well as financing options that suit you. And whole home renos start with Aquatech as well, with thousands of renovations as their foundation. Let Aquatech upgrade any space in your home. Aquatech's ready to make your reno dreams a reality. Learn more about design, pricing, and financing options at aqua-tech.ca. Speaking of summer, we're done boosting cars and having Donnie and Manitoba Battery deliver batteries for your dead vehicle over the course of the winter. Now it's time to have some fun. And whether you need a battery for your lawnmower, a Sea-Doo, a tractor, a boat, whatever you need, Manitoba Battery's got it. You'll be shopping local. You'll be saving money on the big box stores. And Manitoba Battery will deliver it anywhere in town with a purchase of $60 or more for free. No more waiting in lines at the big box stores, and you'll be able to shop local, get the best service and the best prices in town for all your battery needs. 1026 Logan Avenue if you want to pop down and see them, or check them out online with everything that they've got available at manitobabattery.com. And just before we bring in Hot Rod, We're back at IG Field on Friday, and you know what that means, folks. See you at the Rum Hut at halftime. Our friends at Canadian Club are ready for another Bomber season as the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and WST. And don't forget Canadian Club in Ginger Ale, pre-mixed cocktails available at the park on Friday night and for the home opener and throughout the season. And you can also pick it up for your tailgate or just for the weekend, now in 473 milliliter cans at your local liquor mart or beer vendor. All right, let's head down to South FLA. Stanley Cup Final coming up, and obviously a CFL season right around the corner. The host of the Rod Pedersen Show joins us now from Southern RP HQ. What's going on, Hot Rod? How are you?
Good to hear from you, my man. All this talk about summer's here and winter's behind us. I'm like, we're going to Florida. I've been waiting for 2 minutes for you to come down here, man, where it's endless summer and hockey's still going. Unbelievable, eh?
No, you know what? It really is. And, we had about 4 days of spring here. We had a brutal cold March and April. And then it seemed like we got into about the middle of May and bang, the next thing you know, it's 29, 30 degrees every day. And we're here for it. There's a ton of excitement about the upcoming CFL season, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's talk about what's going on in your backyard. I mean, almost an unprecedented run for South Florida sports right now, Rod. I know you're more of a hockey guy than a basketball guy, but I mean, if you're a sports fan or doing a daily show on one of the sports talk shows, no shortage of storylines with the Panthers going to the Cup Final. And then on the other days for the next 2 weeks, the Miami Heat playing for the NBA championship.
It's kind of been a season of first for the entire NHL, but especially here in Florida. And it's like you say, every day there's something new is being done. Like when Florida and Miami, they clinched on the same night, I believe. There's never been 2 8th seeds clinch on the same night. I mean, I've been hearing it every day, and I've been hearing it for 6 weeks. So I'm trying to keep everything straight, Huss. I mean, it would have just if the Panthers alone, what they've done is history making, right? To not be in a playoff spot for 72% of the year, but then at the end of the season, claim a playoff spot and get in. They've never swept anybody before till now, when they did it with Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'm not the biggest basketball guy, but I have so many people saying to me, what's it like down there right now? Well, people wear their Heat stuff year round. I've been coming on your show. I've been here 2 years. You wouldn't really know anything's new with the Heat, but there's a lot of new Panthers fans, Huss.
Well,
that wouldn't surprise you.
There should be. And listen, I mean, I know that market, and listen, I've said Miami and South Florida fans are some of the worst in sports at times because they'll jump on a bandwagon, but a lot of times they aren't necessarily there. But listen, it's been a challenge, to really establish that team. And there's been some ups and downs, and they haven't had the success that, for instance, the Tampa Bay Lightning have had. Very, very healthy franchise, of course, that, really sort of raised the bar in the Eastern Conference as the team to beat for the last few years. But I think the nature of this run to the Cup Final maybe does even more for a franchise like the Panthers, Rod, when you think that, they won the President's Trophy last year, lost to their rivals, got bounced out, and then had one of the most noteworthy off seasons in recent NHL history, changing the coach, hiring Maurice, making the Matthew Tkachuk trade, and then for the majority of this season, not playing up to the expectations. I mean, you called it. I mean, Buddy Robinson, our old pal Buddy from the Moose, scores a goal for the Blackhawks in Pittsburgh to open the door for the Panthers to come in. They got in as the 8th seed, the lowest point total of any team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I really think back to that save that Bob made on Brad Marchand at the end of Game 5, literally a season-saving save. From that moment, they've been on a magic carpet ride right now. And, you watch this team very closely all year long. Be honest, how shocked or how surprised are you that we're talking about this team playing Vegas for the Cup?
Your audience has known my act a long time, as have you. I say the bold things and stuff. A lot of times I don't even believe all of it. But I had counted them out at Christmas. And I was on record at saying they're done. They're playing terrible. And then around New Year, something flipped, and they were playing a different style of hockey, more desperation than anything, Andrew. But then going into the playoff, I remember I was coming back to Canada. There was 20 games left in the regular season. And Randy Moeller's the longtime, as you know, TV color guy of the Panthers, and we've become really good friends. And he's like, Rod, this is in the press box. He goes, we need to go 15-5 the rest of the way to make the playoffs. And in my mind, I'm like, there's no way. They're done. So I wrote them off then. And then they go into, listen, you saw the point differential when they went into round one. It was the biggest point differential in NHL history. In NHL history. You know all this. Best of 7 series. It's never before been done. So when you rattled off all those things, Andrew, they don't need to apologize for getting in on the last weekend. I'm not speaking for them. They feel they don't need to apologize for that or the Bob save or not being in the playoffs for 72% of the regular season. They don't have to apologize for anything. But what I noticed, you talk about me going to the games, I watch a lot of times from ice level. They were playing with no pressure. All along, they were down 3-1 to Boston, dude. Let's not forget that. And then the second they won that series and went up against Toronto, it was the Leafs that were feeling all the pressure. I could see it in their faces. And Carolina literally didn't know what hit them. That was Bob's series. Bob won them that series. And Matthew Tkachuk, and I just clicked on an article here. Maybe it's because I'm in South Florida, but it came up on Yahoo. Is Matthew Tkachuk the next face of the NHL? And I'm like, pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, he's having a great playoff. He's not even the Conn Smythe winner. Bob is, if you were to hand it out today. But it's just a remarkable run. They're having fun. And I noticed probably in January just how much fun they're having. They love each other. They're having fun going to the rink. I don't know how I assume you've talked a little bit about Pomo having the last laugh, right? I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
No, there's plenty of talk about Maurice. And listen, it's probably a little bit of a different conversation in this market because of how long he was with the Winnipeg Jets and the way things finished up. But I'll say this, and we'll get back to Tkachuk in a minute. But as far as Paul Maurice goes, Maurice was taking a lot of heat throughout the season. And he's looking pretty good right now. Mike Kelly of the NHL Network did a great breakdown on some of the things that Paul Maurice had been working on to change from that Panthers team that won the President's Trophy last year that didn't work in the playoffs. I mean, they're far more willing to dump the puck in, to dump the puck out. I mean, before they were a pretty flashy offensive team. That doesn't always work in the postseason. And right now, Rod, I mean, I think we're seeing a team that is buying in 100% to the message of their head coach. And now, at the most important time of the year, they're seeing the results of it.
Well, what I heard in December when I was at the games and was writing them off, and by the way, they told me that they're following everything that I say. They think it's funny that they've jammed it where the sun doesn't shine on me, which is great. I'm okay with eating my words. Believe me, I am. But what they said in December was, we're learning a new system, which is what you just said. We're learning to play defense. We're learning all of that. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. They weren't that much better in the second half. But what they did was play like their lives depended on it every shift. That's what changed. Their effort changed in the second half. And the other thing that I would say is this, because I was here in the playoffs last year too. When they went up against Tampa Bay, in round 2, again, I watched warm-ups from ice level, and I'm like, oh, they're done. They're playing a team of men. Tampa Bay's names, I'm like, their names are Steven and Victor and Patrick. They're men. And the Panthers were a team of Mason and Carter. You know what I mean? Like, they're kids. The Lightning had, gray and white beards. I'm like, this is over. And it was over. They, Vasilevsky out-goaltended Bob. It was a sweep. So as much as Pomo's done great things, and believe me, he has, losing to Tampa in round 2 last year was embarrassing for them. And let's not forget, Joel Quenneville was the head coach when I first came here, Andrew.
Yeah.
Right? And then he was forced. Right. He was forced to step down. Andrew Burnett takes over and literally doesn't screw it up, right? Gets him a President's Trophy. They got out of round 1 into round 2, but he wasn't retained. The Panthers didn't obviously like what Andrew Burnett was selling with this team, incidentally, and ironically hired as head coach in Nashville. So Pomo said, I'll give Pomo a lot of credit, and I know him, not as well as you do, but he's a good guy, right? And he's a great coach. And he was honest. He goes, I came to Florida, and I didn't change anything, culture-wise. He goes, I walked into a great culture. They had always had a great culture. He goes, I just didn't screw it up. And that part's true. He just taught them to play defense. He walked into a great situation. And I like his honesty, too, by the way, where he said, coaching in Winnipeg, I didn't want to coach hockey anymore. You know, because so many people asked him, what happened with Florida? And he's like, Bill Zito called me one day. Didn't he say he was fishing?
Yeah.
And Zito called him and said, would you consider coming down here? I'm like, I know the feeling. It's why I'm sitting in Florida, for God's sake. So I get what Pomo's saying. The second chances are a great thing, man. And I hope they finish it off. People were writing into my show today saying, who's the underdog, who's the favorite? And I'm like, come on, Stevie Wonder can see Vegas is by far the favorites. I mean, that's at what point do we start talking about the matchup? Or maybe you already have.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I think, over the next couple days, you really will dive into it. But, I mean, right now, credit to Vegas and the run that they've on. I'm with you. I mean, I think they're a more complete team, and I think they are the favorite. However, my biggest question is that what will this break do to the Panthers, and particularly Bobrovsky? Because Bob has been playing in another galaxy. It was just absolutely incredible, that performance. I mean, arguably one of the greatest single series goaltending performances in NHL history, and that's a big reason why they're there. But Matthew Tkachuk's a big part of it. And you mentioned, about him potentially being sort of a face of the NHL. And I'm sort of with you. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever, Tkachuk. But then you look, he's going to be a finalist for the Hart Trophy, back-to-back 100-point seasons. And the thing about Matthew Tkachuk is that he's got a personality that separates him from most of the other guys in that conversation. Like, I don't know if you saw Tkachuk on the NBA pregame
of course,
with Barkley and Shaq and all that. I mean, it was hilarious. And I sat there with my buddies watching it, and I'm like, can you imagine Connor McDavid in this situation? I mean, it would have been not even close. Like, listen, when he's on the other team, he's a guy you absolutely love to hate, and he'll drive you crazy. But he's an incredible player. He is a unicorn as a player, as Bill Zito said, why they did what they had to do to get him there. But he also, from a marketing standpoint, as a character, like if you're not involved, if you don't hate the guy's guts because he plays against your team, he's about as good of an ambassador as hockey has right now, because frankly, the bar isn't set very high personality-wise with the number of the top players in the game.
I can't remember who I was with the other night. It was a hockey guy here. Believe me, they do exist here, Andrew. Yeah, believe it or not.
I know.
And he was like, he goes, Chucky. Oh, it was Jeff Chikrin. We were sitting there watching the game 4 against Carolina. He goes, he's cut out the cheap shit. Can I say that? He's like, he's not taking the cheap penalties and putting his team down in 10-minute misconducts that he was in Calgary. That was from Chikrin. He's like, he's grown up since he came here. And there's something to be said about a fit for certain people. Like, Peter Labardius, we all know Lou and love him. I had Lou on my show last week, and I said, how does it feel to watch Chucky doing what he's doing? And you're sitting in Calgary. And he goes, to be honest, it hurts. It hurts. He goes, but he wasn't all in here. And Lou was honest. He goes, Matthew likes the spotlight, but not too much spotlight. And I get it, man. You get it in Winnipeg with, like, Matthew could have never gone anywhere, in Calgary, especially when he became a star. But I was here in August, maybe it was September, when they started advertising the season. Tkachuk, Andrew, was on every billboard, every ad, every social media point. He became the face of the Panthers immediately, which kind of shocked me a little bit. But that's pressure too. And he's lived up to that. But when he leaves his house here, he's getting his ass kissed. It's different than Calgary, where they're wanting a piece of him and wanting to talk hockey. Here they're just celebrating him. Maybe it'll get old here at some point. I'm not sure. But leading into the All-Star week, on the radio here, you talked about the media here and stuff. They were talking about Matthew Tkachuk being the mayor of NHL All-Star week. He's an American player. The game's in his backyard. He's a leading scorer on the Panthers. And what did he do? He went out and was the MVP of the game. So you got to give him credit. It's just a better fit for him. Calgary became not a fit. This is a fit. So it's going to be interesting to see how this series plays out, because right now it's between Bobrovsky and Tkachuk for Conn Smythe. And it would be Bob right now if you put it to a vote, but there's still 4 more wins to go, baby.
Well, there is. I mean, I tell you what, if he scores a few more OT winners in the Cup final, that could flip, because, I mean, it really is a 2-horse race right now. Yep. There's not really anyone on Vegas that's sort of, I mean, Jack Eichel's there, but I could see, I mean, Marchessault. If Marchessault does that same thing, he'll be in the mix right now. I think he's 6-1 on the odds boards heading into the final.
I'm sorry, can I ask you something? I mean, I know there's the Manitoba connection to the Golden Knights. You're all going to be watching anyways because you're a hockey city. But do you think Canada's into this series? Because I'm hearing it a lot that they won't be. And I'm like, I don't believe that. I think people say it, but I think they're going to watch. And there's just unbelievable storylines. We just covered the Florida one, but with Vegas, did you see the clip they showed the other day of Bill Foley the night they introduced the team or announced the team? He's like, they're like, how long before a Stanley Cup? He goes, well, some said 7 years. I'm saying 6.
Yeah.
Here they are. If I was Paul, I'd be showing that in the dressing room. Probably already has.
Oh, believe me, Maurice will have that thing queued up. He'll probably do it before practice, after practice, before the game, anything that he can get to make that happen. Hey, just before we get to the CFL, you've done a number of shows in Calgary. I mean, you've talked Flames quite a bit. It is quite wild if you rewound to 2 or 3 months ago with where the Flames were in the season that they had, that it would be Tree to leave first, probably because they were planning on keeping Daryl Sutter. Sutter then being shown the door after Treliving being gone, and now reportedly Brad Treliving going to get the GM job in Toronto after everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks with the blue and white. What a crazy couple months for him. Oh,
for sure. But if you unpack it a little bit, it's not that crazy. And you're right. I spent 5 months in Calgary in the last year. Doing our show from the casino there. This is what I know. Daryl Sutter was the owner's guy, Murray Edwards, and there was a power struggle between Daryl and Brad. I don't think any of that is news. But when the season ended, Treliving was basically fired. Daryl won the power struggle, which nobody's surprised. He's Daryl Sutter. But 2 things happened. The avalanche of negativity in the city and reaction from the fans, the media, and then their own players in the exit meetings, it was over. Those players wouldn't play for Daryl. I'm not saying all of them, but enough of them. So the plan was to keep Daryl. He won the power struggle, but the avalanche of response after Brad was fired is what led to Daryl being fired. And I don't think, Andrew, anybody could have predicted that. I saw Eric Francis predicting mass carnage with the Flames this summer. This was like with a month to go in the regular season. I'm like, how could you predict that? How do you know? They could have still made the playoffs at that time, right? They were in that battle with the Jets for the final playoff spot, but he was right. He was right. So in retrospect, I think Brad Treliving did a great job. They should have won the Huberdeau, Weegar, Tkachuk trade. They should have won it. And Tkachuk didn't like playing for Daryl, which it's a longer conversation than we have time for now. But with what I've just explained to you, hopefully it makes a little more sense, because that's what I believe happened in Calgary.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this, there are pros and cons to bringing in a taskmaster like Daryl Sutter. And, listen, they had an incredible season last year, obviously fell up short in the Battle of Alberta, but there's a shelf life of that message. And, part of the downside of that, Rod, is pretty tough to convince a player like a Matthew Tkachuk to sign up for another 8 years if they're not really vibing with the guy that's on their ass 24/7. And I think that is another part of the reason why they felt they had to move on even after Brad Treliving was gone.
Well, and actually, don't forget this. It took a while for Daryl to be fired. It took a while for Brad to be fired. And then Daryl, a couple of weeks after that, Tkachuk was lighting it up in these playoffs. Don't think that wasn't a factor. It had to be a factor. It just made Daryl look bad because, to be honest, I get it. When players leave a team, a lot of people will shit talk them on their way out of town. And there were people with the Flames saying Tkachuk can't skate. He didn't want to be here. Blah, 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 blah. It was pretty easy to convince it was time to move on from Tkachuk based on the fact that he checked out in the playoffs last year against Dallas. He was a no-show. He was a different player. You know what I'm saying? So he lights it up here in Florida, especially in the playoffs, I'm sure exacerbated the house cleaning at the top.
Yeah, and then just quickly going, what did you make of 2 weeks ago in Toronto? I mean, they finally win it round, and then Dubas has his press conference, and then later on that week, he's out after all the reports where he was staying. And now, as the Leafs have just made official, Brad Treliving is the guy that will be taking over under maybe the brightest lights as when it comes to a GM job in the NHL.
Kyle Dubas was hired as GM at 32, should have never been hired in the first place. So when you ask me what do I make of it, it was been a gong show ever since. I don't even know how Brendan Shanahan keeps his job. But I'm kind of sitting back watching the Jets going, there's more there than meets the eye. I don't even know. With the Leafs, there's got to be a ton of stuff that I don't know or any of us know. Because I thought them winning a round, beating Tampa was enough, Andrew. I thought we all thought that was enough for everybody to keep their job, wasn't it?
Well, it seemed that way too. And then literally what he said in that press conference and what apparently went on behind the scenes that Shanahan was open about when he spoke, which was very strange for any person in that position, but especially in Toronto. It's been a crazy few weeks. As far as the Jets go, Rod, I think things are going to be quiet for a couple of weeks, through the Cup Final as normally happens. But there is so much. We were just saying this is the 12th anniversary today of the announcement that the Thrashers were becoming the Winnipeg Jets. Wow. And I don't think there has ever been a month on the calendar where more could happen, more is expected to happen than right now. And listen, Cheveldayoff has never been a guy that has been, shall we say, making, huge moves. They've tried to build their team in a certain way based on the market and the challenges and grow that up. But when you've got Scheifele, when you've got Dubois, when you've got Hellebuck all with 1 year left on their contract and major questions as to if any of those players would be back on extensions, something's got to give. I mean, this organization cannot afford to have talent like that walk out the door for nothing, a la Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. And that is why I think the expectations are that we're in for a very, very interesting month. And I think some of the things, because of how many things need to happen and get clarified, I don't think it waits until the week of the draft in Nashville. I think it actually happens beforehand. What did you think? What was your reaction when you heard Bones after Game 5 against Vegas erupt like a volcano?
I couldn't believe it. I was stunned. And to be honest, I thought there's no way that they can repair this relationship. But I guess it's been repaired. What did I say? I was just thinking about it this morning. I was like, if Rick Bowness can't coach this team and Paul Maurice, who the hell can? That's what I thought. But by the way, with your trivia question earlier, maybe somebody's answered it. Who is the longest tenured GM in the NHL? Can I take a swing and say Doug Armstrong in St. Louis?
You are correct. You're correct, Rod.
Ding, 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 ding.
2010. He is now the longest tenured GM. Of course, David Poile had that job since 97. Yeah. Barry Trotz is now the guy who just hired Andrew Brunette, as you mentioned. But yeah, 2010 for Doug Armstrong, and now Cheveldayoff, the second longest tenured GM. And I will suggest that this will be the most interesting month in his entire term as general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. So it'll certainly be a team to watch. Roddy, it's a great time of year. I mean, we got the Cup Final coming up. We've got what will be a very interesting offseason month for the National Hockey League and certainly the team here in Winnipeg. We've also got CFL kickoff happening in a week. You're still all over the league. I've been reading your website on the weekend. You're on it. What's the you're still very connected to the Saskatchewan market. They had such a disappointing season last year. What are you hearing about the Riders right now? What is the vibe around that organization, of that team, with the changes that didn't happen after last year? And what's on the line for everybody involved this year with the green and white?
What's on the line is their jobs. And I find it quite difficult to talk about the Rough Riders in Sask because people are so positive. Why wouldn't they be right now? It's May for a day anyways, right? They haven't lost a game yet.
Everybody's in first place right now, Rod.
So everybody's positive. I don't see a great year coming. But when I say that, everybody gets angry. So I'm like, okay, I won't talk about it. So they had a good showing last weekend, and I'm interested to see how they do Friday night at Winnipeg. The O-line didn't give up a sack. They got a new offensive coordinator. I thought he had a good offensive game plan for preseason standards. It was very basic, but they lost the turnover battle 4-3. But it was a good start. I don't expect a lot. I think they're in a tough division. And do we care as much about the preseason? I don't know. Edmonton was 0-2. You're looking at a West where Winnipeg's number one. We all know that. Calgary and BC believe they're going to be good, and I think they will be. So now with Sask and Edmonton wrestling in the mud for fourth, maybe third, and I don't even know if Edmonton's got anything. So it's not about how good you are. I was in the league 20 years full time, Andrew. It's about what's your competition in the division? That's what it's about. And I just don't see them being ahead of those other teams. Again, good enough start, but they got a lot of proving to do. And there's a lot of people think it'll be a house cleaning by Labor Day. Prove me wrong.
By Labor Day, I was going to say if they don't make the playoffs, but I think you're right. If it does get off to a really, really poor start, listen, the seats are as hot as they've ever been in Saskatchewan for a team going into week one. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. They haven't been this hot since the 90s. And to be honest, that's, again, they don't want to hear it. I mean, I'm trying to talk about this team and cover it objectively, and people don't want you to be objective. I look at their wins in the last 4 years, they've gone 13, 9, 6. And they were 6-12 last year in a season where they're hosting the Grey Cup. And I see an interview where the president says, we forecasted a down year. Who believes this stuff? You're hosting the Grey Cup. You expected to be down and go 6-2. Who believes this stuff?
Well, who
but the fans are believing it. Pardon me?
I mean, the thought that you would actually have a plan. Well, we're hosting the Grey Cup, but we know this is going to be a year we're probably not in the play. Like, that just doesn't happen that way. And frankly, it's negligence on management if that was the way it was approached. But I'm with you. I don't think anyone can look at that with a straight face and think that that was the plan that year. That being said, things went poorly. What I think was surprising was that they didn't make more changes organizationally, head coach-wise. They did make a quarterback change, though. Very interesting to see how Trevor Harris and Cody Fajardo do sort of swapping places this year. And I think both of those teams are going to sort of be up against it. I do want to ask you, you know Chris Jones quite well. The Elks stunk last year. They couldn't win at home. It takes a while to build a team in Jones's vision. They were very active in the offseason. What do you expect? Is this going to be a big step forward for the Elks this year? Or is this maybe fool's gold if people are expecting the Jones magic to start popping this season?
What I know about Jones is a lot, and I don't talk to him that much. I talk to his people a lot. And the knock against him is his inability to ever find a quarterback. And the ironic thing, in Sask, Zach was to be his guy.
Yeah.
Caleros, that was the guy. Of course, Zach couldn't play because he was hurt. Exactly. So Taylor Cornelius is their guy because for lack of finding anybody else. Because I've said, like, you see that he just goes through players like they're trading cards. And I've said to his coaches, why can't he settle on somebody, especially at the quarterback position? And they said, because he's waiting for the perfect quarterback, the 6'4", nimble arm, rocket arm. And I'm like, that guy doesn't exist in the CFL. He doesn't really. And there's not a lot of Ricky Rays that grow on trees, Andrew. So Taylor Cornelius is the guy going into the year. Jones's thing has always been defense, right? And the fact that they had Deron Carter or tried to start him in the secondary last year tells me that I don't know where the plan is for Edmonton. And going 0-2 in the preseason, collapsing against Winnipeg the other night, I know that it's exhibition, but you still got to play a football game and play defense. So I want the best for them, and I don't really see it happening.
What do you think your old buddy Bo Levi is going to do in Hamilton this year, Rod?
Yeah, I think he's going to be in the Grey Cup. That's what I think.
You're high on the Ticats?
Yeah, well, because of him. I mean, I think the reason he and I hate each other so much is we're too alike, and that's what I hear from all the people in Calgary. Well, his thing is prove me wrong, mother effer, and I'm going to go out, and that's where he's at. And I would never bet against a motivated Bo Levi Mitchell. I won't do it. They're good enough talent-wise. We know they are, right? And what were they missing? They felt a quarterback. They're the New York Jets of the CFL, I guess. What they were missing was that guy. So I think Bo's only 32, says he feels fine. So yes, I don't think much out of Edmonton, but I think Hamilton's going to be in the Grey Cup. And they're in a weak division too. So
that's the thing. That East is so wide open. Even if you look at the win totals, on the odds boards, the Ticats do have the highest one, but I think the Argos take a big step back. I'm not sure Chad Kelly has the maturity to be the leader of a football team. The one team that I'm very keen to see, and thinking that they have a huge step forward is Ottawa. I mean, Bobby Dice, he is such a great leader of men. I think that if he has the right coordinators in there that can handle the technical side of the game planning of the offense and defense, I know Bobby's going to get the best out of every guy putting on a jersey. And of course, the biggest variable of that is quarterback play. And part of the thing that sunk Lapo last year was Masoli getting hurt early and missing most of the year. If Jeremiah Masoli can stay healthy, I think the Ottawa Red Blacks are going to be the team that'll be knocking on the door of the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the East.
I talked to yours of my good friend, AJ Jakubek, the other day, and he doesn't think Masoli's going to be ready to start the season. So I don't expect much out of Ottawa, and I feel sorry because I'm on the air in Bob Dice's hometown. I love me some Bob Dice, but there's no quick fixes in any pro league, and Ottawa's been terrible for a long time. So if they don't have Masoli and they don't have a roster capable, which I don't think that they do, I think they're fourth by quite a bit. I really do. Now, a lot of this is my heart. I mean, Fajardo, you mentioned him earlier. I love Cody Fajardo. He's in Montreal. I'm pulling for him. But the fact that Masoli's not ready to go, I love Nick Fatty Arbuckle, but I just don't see it. But it's fun to talk about, though, isn't it?
Hey,
fun to talk about.
Listen, it's going to be fun. Even though it's a preseason, I think there's a lot of people here can't wait to get out to IG Field. And I mean, from a Bomber standpoint, I mean, it's frankly been the most boring camp ever because, I mean, you pretty much know who's going to be out there in week number one as long as everybody's healthy. There's no huge positional battles, especially since Sergio Castillo was reacquired after being cut by the Elks. And it's just about time to get going on the unfinished business tour and see if they can get back to the Grey Cup and avoid a narrow loss like they did last year. Rod, before we go, you have always been a Knights guy. You're down in South Florida with the Panthers. Who you got in the series?
Vegas in 6, because the Panthers have proved me wrong every time all year. So, yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I have the exact same pick, and hopefully we're right if we're doing a little sprinkle on it. Rod, let's do this again soon. Be well, enjoy that sunshine, and enjoy the Stanley Cup Final. I'll look forward to the RP show throughout the Cup Final with some great coverage from the belly of the beast at one of the 2 home rinks. Have a great one and enjoy those games.
I enjoyed it, buddy. Thanks.
Appreciate it, pal. There is the one and only Rod Pedersen. You can check the RP show on Game Plus Network at 11 a.m. Winnipeg time. And, of course, you can also check it out and subscribe on YouTube. All right, Billeck's going to join us in just a couple minutes. We will talk to Hacksaw a little bit later on. Folks, barbecuing season's here. And if you're looking for incredible grass-fed bison and beef steaks, head on down to Vita Health Fresh Market, where you can find that and, of course, great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. Now with online delivery, same day if you get it ordered at myvita.ca before 11 a.m. After 11 a.m., it'll be delivered the next day. And, of course, when you shop at Vita Health, you're supporting a great local company, family-owned and operated since 1936, carrying Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products. Get on down to any one of 7 Vita Health Fresh Market stores, or you can visit their website at myvita.ca to buy online. Wallace & Wallace, very busy right now, getting ready for a lot of work to be done this summer. If you have needs when it comes to fencing or overhead doors, talk to the experts who've been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. On the fencing side, Wallace & Wallace has vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences, whatever you need. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they are the Clopay dealer with Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. 452-2700 is the number to call. Wallace & Wallace will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston. Fellas, how's the closet looking as we get into spring and summer? Wedding season's here. If you need to up your menswear game heading into the next few months, you need to get on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. In a wedding party, talk to them about a 15% discount for all the guys in the wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel, and still time to grab a free custom shirt and tie for any 2023 high school grad with the purchase of a new suit for their big day next month. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street. You can make an appointment or find out more online at that's EPHapparel.com. And another heater outside today, folks. Make a point of popping in and getting that great taste of summer at Nick and Nicky DQ with a blizzard run for the family to one of 4 Nick and Nicky DQ locations: DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, and DQ Niverville. All the new summer blizzard flavors are in. While you're at it, pick up some ice cream novelties to stick in the freezer. And don't sleep on those stack burgers as well when you're hungry. Big thanks to Nick and Nicky DQ for their support since day one of Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, let's get Billeck in here today for his weekly visit on the program. Scotty, what's going on?
Dude, some of your people in your chat will appreciate that I'm waiting another 28 hours for Diablo 4 to release an early access. So that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting. I'm working.
This is a video game?
This is a video game, yeah. Somebody in your chat will enjoy that.
What's it called? Diablo
4. Yeah, it's the 4th installment. So
oh, nice.
One of the biggest games of all time. So,
you're a big. Is this a shooter game, much like Call of Duty?
No, it's like an action RPG hack and slash type game. So yeah.
Interesting. Well, I was more fired up for the release of WWE 2K23.
We all got our vices, man. We all got our vices.
Exactly. And the new golf game. Hey, listen, we'll talk some hockey off-season Bombers and whatnot, but got a chance to see you on Saturday, courtside for the big debut of the Sea Bears. I mean, what an amazing, amazing day for, I think, the city, the sports community, and certainly for that organization. I can't imagine the rebirth of pro hoops in Winnipeg going any better than it did on Saturday night at Canada Life Center.
Yeah. I mean, what a storybook ending, right? Like it started the end, Huss. Like Chad Posthumus, the guy who was the first signing. He's a Winnipegger. He graduated from, you call him what, the River East Beast, I think you're saying?
The Beast from River East.
Yeah, it sounds like a Goosebumps book. But I mean, that's the thing with it. It's just like, he grabs the offensive board, he gets the putback, and it puts him over the Elam ending line, which is something that I had to learn, pretty quickly on Saturday, how that Elam ending worked. But even that, like that whole thing, and I love the NBA. I grew up playing basketball, high school ball, provincial basketball in the province here at Oak Park, and it's just, I was like, this is such a cool way to end a game. It sounded really trivial to begin with. I was like, this is kind of silly, but like it really adds to the intensity of the game. Like, the Sea Bears had a 13-point lead heading into that, and it got erased because Vancouver went on an 18-5 scoring run. And so like the whole game, like Chad Posthumus called it the game within the game. And it truly was that. And so the ending was so spectacular, but the way that it ended with Chad scoring that bucket to put them over, to get them to 90 points, to win that game. And the crowd went nuts, man. Like, I mean, I saw your video. You did like kind of a live video right after it or during it, little hit based on, and like the crowd was wild. And I watched that back over the weekend, and I was like, it was so cool to see such a different group of kind of fans. Like I'm always at Jets games and Bomber games, but this engaged a different part of Winnipeg, right? It engaged a different group of fans who don't get to see maybe their favorite sport in basketball all the time, and so that was a cool part. Like the experience was awesome. The game day experience was really cool. It's cool that they play music during it. Like, I mean, that to me, that was a dream when I was playing any sport, right? Just to have like your favorite tunes just pumping while you play. Like that was cool. So like I really enjoyed that. And then like it just seemed like it was so well done. It looked like, I mean, I've never been to an NBA game, so, but it looked like if you didn't have, I mean, the whole bottom bowl was basically sold out. I think they had 7,300 fans.
I mean, they were turning people away.
Right, I mean, and the way that they configure it, right, is so like, I mean, it looked sold out down there. I mean, they had different ways. The courtside seats are really cool. And it was fun to watch a game from court level. Like watching a hockey game like that would be really annoying, to be frank, just because you don't get to see kind of the plays develop. But watching a basketball game courtside is, I mean, you just felt like you were there, right? Like in it, like, not playing per se, but like you were right in it. And just the way that the game ended, like it couldn't have gone more perfectly. I mean, I don't think you could have scripted that any better with not a buzzer beater, but like a game-winning shot. Let's say a walk-off bucket there from Chad. And it was just a great night. And you almost like, well, how do you follow that up in their next home game? Well, I guess for a little while, you don't have to worry about that. They're not back until June 12th. But I think that sort of thing just really, I think that was the perfect moment to get basketball, thrust into the spotlight, because I think there was a lot of people that would walk away from that game like, I want to go to another game.
Oh, for sure.
And
you only get
included. Like,
you only get one. You only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
And their first impression was an absolute grand slam. And you mentioned it. A big part of that was the way Winnipeg showed up and showed out. The energy in the building was great. And again, we've talked about this. It was a different crowd. I mean, they really did engage some of the, the communities in Winnipeg that, you might not see in as big numbers at hockey games or even football games.
Yeah.
So all of that was great. But then when it came down to the actual product, I mean, the athletes were great. And listen, I'm not to the point of being a basketball connoisseur. I mean, obviously, it's not the NBA, but there was a lot of great athletes there doing great things. First game of the season. I mean, I don't think that either team was in championship form just yet. But everything that went around with the game, and you mentioned that the Elam rule or the target score, whatever you want to call it, I'd never seen a game before that was like that. I guess I had in the World Championships last summer, because these are FIBA rules.
Yeah.
It is a complete game changer. There's no wasting time. There's no all those BS fouls that often, kind of take people out at the end. Yeah. It's all out to get to that point. And yes, you mentioned the Seabears did go to Brick City for a couple minutes there and couldn't sink one. And then all of a sudden you're in this super tight game, but the hometown guy wins it. And as I say, for a first impression, it could not have gone any better. And listen, they smashed the CEBL record.
Yeah.
They're playing for attendance. I think the old record was 4,400.
Yeah, 4,404, and they basically beat it by 2,900. Right?
I would not be surprised, and I know that was the home opener, but I'll predict this right now. I bet they average more than 4,400 once we get to the end of the season. Like, I think that there'll be a lot of those people that will be back. And again, it's only 10 games too. So, I mean, a nice little niche in the calendar right now, kind of in between hockey. And obviously the Bombers are going to be getting going. Goldeye's playing right now as well. But there was a need for it. People came out. And as they say, I'm looking forward to being back there courtside beside you guys and just going as a fan sometimes, because it certainly seemed like everyone that was in the stands had a hell of a great time.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You mentioned Goldeye's, and you mentioned, it might not be the talent of the NBA or whatever, but it truly feels like a Goldeye's experience, right? Like, it may not be MLB, but the guys can play, right? I mean, not everybody's shooting 60% out there, either. Some of the Seabears guys were shooting like 20% on the night, but you got to take into account, like, this team is. I think thrown together would be disrespectful, but the way that the speed at which this kind of comes together, they still have one player playing out in Qatar right now that hasn't Shane Addison. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to butcher his last name, but there's another guy that's coming. They just had one guy, Jalen Watson-Gale, who's from England. He just got here on Monday night, I believe it was.
He was awesome
on the Monday before the game. Yeah, he comes off the bench and leads the team in scoring. So this team is still kind of trying to get used to each other, let alone kind of put a winning product on the court. And you look at other expansion teams that have happened in this league, and it's possible that this team goes 1-19 in the end, right? We have no idea, but most of these teams that come in aren't really that good, and Winnipeg showed that they could really hang, and I think that was a more surprising thing, and maybe that was just feeding off the crowd and that, but you would also expect on a night like that there'd be a lot of jitters. There's a few Winnipeggers in that thing, and you got to think in that game. I mean, Chad was in foul trouble 3.5 minutes in.
Dude, Simon Hildebrand had the game. That was the guy that
exactly.
I mean,
I know. I mean, this is a guy who just played. He was just a rookie of the year in youth sports at the University of Manitoba. Comes in to play his first professional game, and yeah, he puts his first shot. He jams it between the rim and the backboard. But then after that, he loses the jitters and he just comes out and plays a great game. It was yeah. I mean, I don't know, like that's one of those moments where you're trying like to figure out how do you capture that in words, because I mean, you really just like it would have been, you needed to watch it. Like it was that cool of a moment. And you know, I don't know when the last time I've had kind of one of those as a reporter. Like, I mean, for the Jets, you know, you go back to maybe Game 3 of against Nashville Predators. You know, maybe it's that, and it really just like a cool moment for fans where it was just like this. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. I've struggled, but it was an awesome event. And I truly hope that this works. I hope the league is stable, not like, you know, when the Winnipeg Thunder were here. You know, I really hope that this kind of catches on, and because you know, you watch the way that this team has kind of embraced the city and the facilities that they have. I really think that this Winnipeg team could be really good over the years, because you could get, you know, you build that, you have these great facilities, you have a city that embraces you, and a lot of different other opportunities. I mean, I remember talking to Mike Taylor, the head coach, and part of the reason that a lot of players want to come to certain places is other income opportunities. Can they do a little bit of advertising or all that kind of different stuff, right? Promotional things, whatever it is. I mean, I really think you can make this, you know, sort of like a Winnipeg Blue Bombers environment where you can really attract some of the best players and bring them in and kind of have a competitive team perennially. And so, like, I think that's, yeah, I'm excited to watch more of it. I mean, like it was a fun thing, and you know, I think it rekindled for me. And I mean, I used to watch basketball religiously. I don't as much anymore, but I want to watch the next Winnipeg Sea Bears game. I mean, that's, you know, I don't know what other, you know, better compliment than you could probably give than, you know, wanting to watch the next game, right? So
yeah, we had Chad on the show yesterday talking about, you know, the first game, and obviously they're hitting the road right now on the weekend, and then coming back, I believe, on the 12th for the next home game, and then there's a weekend game on the 23rd.
yeah.
But as I say, and you mentioned, you know, setting up the organization. I mean, David Asper and his entire team deserve a lot of credit. I mean, the key thing, getting those games at that downtown arena completely changes the equation, I think, for that team, as opposed to playing in the convention center or one of these smaller spots that a lot of the other teams are in. And obviously, David, you know, has a long history with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and to sort of seeing what Wade and that group has done right now, and probably a pretty good blueprint to start off something like this.
Well, and just seeing David Asper there, he was courtside. He's got the big Sea Bears chain on,
it.
his gold chain. His hat was like flat and brimmed.
Lean
and
into
whatever.
it. It
was incredible. I was like, I've never seen David Asper not in a suit, right? And then you see him like courtside with a bit of baggy pants on and like a, you know, it was almost like a camo shirt or a sweater that he was wearing, and the chain and the hat. Yeah, it was interesting.
Speaking of
right?
courtside seats, right across from us, did you see those two dudes in the matching green velour tracksuits?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I've just been thinking about those guys through the week. Like, what? I wanted more information on what exactly they were.
Be a story.
And to be honest, I was somewhat inspired, because I want to become a velour tracksuit guy. Like, I think that I'm at this point in my evolution, I think I could pull it off. And I think it might be a good look for me going forward. Scott Billeck's with us from the Winnipeg Sun. Scotty, you, Ted, and Freezer and the gang over at the Sun have the annual "You Be the Boss" survey out. How's traction on that bit over at the Sun's website?
Yeah, I think it's been up for a day and a half now, a little bit more than that. We're approaching 2,000 responses so far, which is awesome. I'm really happy about that. Obviously, you know, one of the things that I wanted to do with this was kind of wait a bit, and you know, the reason why I did it, and some people have like, well, why didn't you put this out at the end of the season? Part of that
right
is
after
just,
Game 5, when everyone's max pissed.
Exactly, and so that's the thing, right? Like, you know, oftentimes you don't want to make decisions when you're, you know, pissed off, and you don't want to make your decisions out of anger or whatever. You want to kind of have, let's say, sober second thought, and so thought we'd wait a little bit to put it out, let the temperature kind of, you know, drop a little bit, the mercury go down, and see, you know, what would come of it. And so I didn't want the recency bias to get in, but maybe the biggest mistake that I made on this was leaving the bottom graph. The last question in the survey is like, basically say whatever you want, like get it off your chest. And holy cow, some people have gotten a lot like this
1,500 word dissertations.
Well, this is it, right? So like, I mean, so there's like almost 2,000 responses here now, and like I'm gonna try and have to read like literally 2,000. Like some of them are long, some of them are long, and it's just like, and then some people said no, and some people said you suck and whatever, and that's fine. I got one here. I mean, it is monster. Like, so the nice thing about Google Forms is it puts it in this like Google Sheet thing. And so all the responses kind of get sorted or whatever. And so like this one person, I don't know who it was, but there's at least 20 points here on what needs to change. Like first of all the moves that that they said that Kevin Cheveldayoff made that have kind of screwed the team. And then there's just another long list of all these potential trades that they want to see happen. And so it's like, it's pretty interesting, right? I mean, some of them are wishful thinking. Hellebuck for, I don't know. I mean, Quinton Byfield, I don't think that's happening. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, it's interesting, right? I mean, it's always fun to kind of see what, and people, to people's credit, I got 2,000 responses here. And when I scroll through these, I mean, there's very few people that didn't take the time to write something in that last question. And obviously, it's going to be cool to go through all the actual responses to, all the other questions that were in there. But like people, I mean, you can just tell how dedicated Jets fans are, that they'll take, 5 minutes or maybe like 3 hours based on this one question answer that I have to kind of really go through and just kind of say what they want to say. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to read. I mean, we keep it up for a week. It'll come down Sunday. And then I'll have the next week or so to kind of parse through everything and kind of report back on what fans feel. And I always find it interesting. I enjoy it because, I mean, I think one of the things, and I'm looking at some of these questions, and you just kind of look at how people kind of respond and who do they want. I mean, most people want to see either Pierre-Luc Dubois or Connor Hellebuyck re-signed, right? We only gave one option in that. Some bickered at that, but you can't sit there and give like how many guys, and you can like there's not enough. So I mean, there's not enough time in the day to kind of just like parse through everything. And I'm not trying to do the Jets work for them either. But some of this it's just interesting to see how fans are split on signing a certain guy, or they want Connor Hellebuyck for sure re-signed. They obviously know the importance. So I mean, you get to see. I mean, the fan base is very intelligent here, and so you get to see a lot of these things and how they go. So
let me ask you about Chevy, because we were actually just talking. I was looking this up today. With the new moves and Treliving heading in to run the Calgary Flames and Craig Conroy going in, or excuse me, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Craig Conroy going in to run the Flames. I looked at the list of general managers in the NHL, and Chevy's now the second longest tenured GM after Doug Armstrong in St. Louis, who took the job over in 2010. And I mean, I think you can certainly make the argument that Cheveldayoff, Chipman, like the entire group did, I mean, a really good job over those first 5 years identifying where they needed to go, and they built a team that was a legitimate contender. It seems, from my perspective at least, it seems like the disappointment and the angst and some of the things that have been, are criticisms of the GM is that they maybe it's not the moves that they did do, it's maybe moves that they didn't do over the last couple years that, we're essentially going into a make or break month with so much on the line for Winnipeg as to the future of almost the foundation of the team. When you're getting this sort of feedback, I mean, are you reading that the same way, or is there some things that people still don't like? I mean, obviously the Line 8 trade is going to be one that will always be associated with Kevin Cheveldayoff, and I think the jury is still out on that until we find out what the conclusion of the Pierre-Luc Dubois era is here. But how are you reading that? Because listen, I get it. Fans more so today than ever before are sort of impatient. That is in a lot of ways some of the effect of social media right now. But I do think that this fan base is smart enough to realize that there are unique challenges and it's not quite as easy. As Chevy himself said, it's not fantasy hockey, at least when you're the GM of the Winnipeg Jets. But thoughts on, what you're hearing as far as that is, and further to that, the pressure to come up big in this month of June, because as I said, this is 12 years to the day that the franchise came here. I'm not sure that we've had ever a month ahead of us with as much expected to happen, and frankly has to happen one way or the other with this hockey club since they became the Jets from the Atlanta Thrashers.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I haven't looked through all of them yet, so it's hard to say. But I think there's just people all over the map, right? I mean, I think there are people that. Let's say this. That there isn't a lot of people that saying that they trust Kevin Cheveldayoff implicitly. I can go through that right now and just kind of see, based on this, kind of how. But I think there's just a lot of people that just want to see this team succeed, right? I mean, I think fans are kind of, just going over this. Like fans they're waiting for something to change. Like it. You get a taste back in 2017-18, and you got a pretty good taste of the first half of 2018-19 season. And if you're a fan this season too, you're like, yeah, we got a taste right up till January 15th or so of what this team can accomplish. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people see that this core just hasn't worked out. I think there's that. I mean, I think people want more, let's say, more risk involved in what the Jets do, and I say that in a way that they don't just trade off all these guys or move everybody assets. But when you don't really trade a whole lot and you're not promoting a whole lot either from within, we're still waiting for Ville Heinola to get a spot. There's been players over the years where this team has just kind of let marinate for a little longer than you would want. So yeah, I think there's just it's split. On a lot of these, but I think the one of the biggest one of the questions is where is kind of Kevin Cheveldayoff? What's the temperature on him? And I think a lot of people, it's either he's past his due date or he needs to make the team better now, because it's such a critical juncture for this team this summer to kind of, where is this team going to head, right? You might lose your top two centers, you might lose your best goaltender. It's just the way that it's going to happen. So, what's the direction of this team? And I think a lot of people are just waiting for that, right? And over this next month, perhaps we'll, sort of figure what that is.
It's a crossroads.
It's 100% a crossroads
for this group. I mean, and let's face it. I mean, there's been more continuity for a number of reasons with this group than most others. Yeah. And there will be some conclusion one way or the other, whether it be extensions. And again, the two players you're talking about being extended, probably the most difficult ones to do it. And I'm still of the opinion, I'm not even sure they go down the road of an extension with Mark Scheifele. I mean, I really think that the Scheifele-Wheeler era, the curtain's closing on that right now. Yeah. But in your opinion, and again, this goes back to, I think back to the trade deadline and the amount of cantankerous fans here in the chat and around it that were just irate that the Jets didn't, trade their first round pick and prospects to get one of these guys to come in was, I'll be honest, I was stunned at it because, when I read the tea leaves and saw the way that team was playing, there was no way in hell, if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I was going to be sacrificing future assets and important pieces of what this team is going to need to move on into the team that was playing the way they were last year at the deadline. And I think that's sort of proven out that was probably a very prudent move in retrospect. But now we're at the point where these things have to happen. And listen, if there are some players traded, there's a number of different options as to what comes back. I'm of the belief that if you're trading Dubois, if you're trading Scheifele, if Hellebuck is on the way, what has to come back is younger assets that are under team control that have the potential to turn into real difference makers for the club. And I realize that there's risk involved in that. But I would far prefer the team to go that way, acknowledging that, yeah, you know what? This might not be on paper as talented as a team as we had last year. But at the same time, I think that there's some benefits to moving out some particular players and changing the way that the team plays. Hell, the Florida Panthers are a perfect example of that right now.
Yep.
I mean, they snuck in, but they're playing a style of play night in and night out, buying into what their coach says that gives them a chance to win in the playoffs. And as I said, with Hellebuck, you've always got a chance to win. If he's not there, that really does change things. But I mean, from my perspective, if we get to July 1st and some moves have been made that maybe in the short term don't make the team quote unquote better, but puts this team in a far better situation to go bring in these younger players over the next couple of years and start a new window, that to me is a win for the Winnipeg Jets. Where are you? Like when you're writing about this team, once we get to free agency on the 1st, after the week in Nashville, what will be a win in your mind for Kevin Cheveldayoff, basically, when it comes to doing what he has to do with this roster?
Well, it's interesting, right? And so, like, let's say, I mean, theoretically, you lose. Let's say you lose Scheifele and Dubois, right? Well, I think at that point, I don't know what you're getting back for those guys, because part of the problem is you're probably going to have with those two potentially is that if you trade Dubois to a team, I don't know, let's say, Colorado, right? You know, a team that potentially wants a second line center, but they only want him for 1 year to try and win another Stanley Cup and that sort of thing. The return on that sort of guy, I don't know exactly what you're getting, right? If Dubois wants to do a sign and trade, then the return is obviously bigger. And I think the same thing with Mark Scheifele. Like Mark Scheifele goes to Boston or Carolina or, one of those teams, it might only be for 1 year. And then, so basically you're trading for a self-rental. It caps how much. I'm doing a story today, and so I'm going to talk
on that.
about...
I was just going to say, just on that Scheifele bit,
and
I kind of touched on this yesterday. I'm not sure that there's an extension waiting for Scheifele when he's traded. I think that he's going to have a massive prove-it year wherever he is. And I think the best-case scenario for him is going into a new scenario, with a good locker room where he doesn't have to be the guy, goes in, fits in well, is his usual productive self on the ice and fits in, and then earned that contract. To me, Dubois is a little different. Dubois, because of his age, where he's at right now, I think that there will be teams that will be interested in Dubois, but probably would be in right now at trying to get a deal done. Now, obviously, that's contingent on whether he's interested in doing a deal with any other team than the one that has been mentioned over and over again.
Yeah, and so I don't mention Boston, and so we're doing a 3-part series coming up on kind of where these guys could go. This is always the same thing. Everybody kind of does these things, right? But you're trying to look at the best fits and all those things. So I'm doing Hellebuck tomorrow, so I'll get to that in a second. But Scheifele, to me, if Mark Scheifele's smart and his agent's smart, you're like, okay, can I get into Boston or can I get into Carolina? And I'm playing first of all, I'm playing in 2 locker rooms that are run by veteran guys that aren't going to take any shit, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that would be helpful for Mark Scheifele to maximize his earning potential when he becomes a UFA in 2024. Secondly, I think you're going to go and play under 2 head coaches that are also not going to take a lot of shit, and you're going to learn from those guys. Let's say Mark Scheifele playing under Rod Brindamore in Carolina. Mark Scheifele is going to be a changed player coming out of that, right? You're going to learn a certain way to play. This is how it is. And it may be risky for Mark, because if Rod can't change Mark, well, then probably nobody can. But I think for Scheifele, just to go into a new place where you're not, as you said, not kind of maybe leaned upon as a leader, but more so just leaned upon for your goal scoring ability, your power play prowess, all those sorts of things. You add an element of defensive to your game that consistently that you didn't have in here in Winnipeg, and you kind of just learn how to, I think that those are kind of the 2 places where I'm Mark Scheifele. Patrice Bergeron isn't coming back next year in Boston. I'd want to be in Boston, and obviously, this isn't necessarily the way it's going to go. Obviously there has to be, trade partners there for Cheveldayoff, and obviously assets that they can get back. But if I'm Mark Scheifele, those are the places I want to go to kind of do that. And like you said, but for Connor Hellebuyck, I mean, I'm looking at it and it's so difficult. And I put this question out on Twitter last night, and it's like, who is the last goal, or maybe it was 2 nights ago, but it was, who is the last goalie kind of in their prime that's been dealt, like, and I'm not talking about just any goalie, but like an elite goaltender. And for me, and my mind's changed. I thought it was Ryan Miller at the trade deadline in 2014. For me right now, I think it's actually Roberto Luongo in 2006 to Vancouver. You look at their return from Vancouver to Florida, it was like Bertuzzi, Alex Auld, and Blake something or other. I mean, again, basically a bag of pucks at the end of the day, right? Bertuzzi was kind of on the back nine of his career. Alex Auld wasn't, the goalie that Florida would have wanted him to become and all that. And meanwhile, Vancouver gets, a guy that I think he was nominated for, I think he won the Vezina the following year and was in the Hart consideration the year later in Vancouver, and obviously, went on to take them to the Stanley Cup Final in 2011. All
became
that
the
stuff,
captain.
Right? Well, that too, right? I mean, so yeah. But I mean, it's just interesting. Like, what is a good return? What is a comparable return for Connor Hellebuyck? And so I've kind of looked at that, and I'm not sure, right? I mean, so like if you go, I mean, I got the LA Kings on here as a team that potentially, because I mean, just based on their goaltending situation, they don't have Jonathan Quick anymore. Cal Peterson's future is, up in the air. We don't know where that's going to go. And Jonas Korpisalo is a UFA. So you don't really have a goalie. You might have Cal Peterson, but you're not entirely sure if he's going to pan out at the NHL level, because they had to essentially replace him this year with.
He's making $5 million playing in the A.
I get it, right? And they need him to work out. But I mean, if you're LA and you've got all these players coming up, I mean, you got the Byfields and you got Drew Doughty, who's still playing well, and this team, and you got one more year of Anze Kopitar before his $10 million contract ceases to be a thing on the books for LA. So there's potential there to even re-sign Connor Hellebuyck, and that team's still on the upswing, in my opinion. But what are you getting from them, right? Like, are they willing to trade Sean Durzi and Gabe Vilardi? But I mean, LA is one of the teams that have one of the best prospects pools in the NHL right now. They have Brant Clark on D. I really like Francesco Pinelli, who played in Kitchener this year in the OHL, Alex Turcotte. But like, what do you think is like the big return? Like, I don't know if you're getting a goalie back in a trade, but if you go, let's say you went for the Ottawa Senators, is Shane Pinto a guy that you would like? Okay, maybe you get a pick or something else on top of that. But Shane Pinto is a center, scored 20 goals this year. I mean, they were reluctant to trade him, and they didn't end up trading him to Arizona in the chicken deal. But if Ottawa wants an elite goaltender and the Jets need a second-line center, potentially a top-line center as he keeps going, is that a good trade for the Winnipeg Jets? So you trade Connor Hellebuyck, potentially with the context of knowing you might not have Scheifele and Dubois. Do you get another center? And I look at Peyton Krebs in Buffalo. I don't know if – here's the other thing. Are Buffalo willing to move on Owen Power at all? And would Buffalo be willing to get an elite goaltender for, a 6'6" defenseman that's shown really well? Like, it's hard to find out. And then you look at New Jersey. I mean, do you want Jesper Brad and Vitek Vanacek? I don't know if that actually solves your problems on this team down the middle. And so that's another problem that you have.
It doesn't. But I mean, that centerpiece coming in, and you mentioned the name Byfield before. And again, I don't know whether he's untouchable. He certainly hasn't popped yet at the NHL level. And this is the time where, I mean, from my perspective, you have to at least go down that road if a player like that is potentially available that, could have a real high upside given that opportunity to play in the role that he would be playing here if those other two guys are gone, and how that deal would look. The one thing that I'll say with a place like LA, maybe not as much Ottawa, although I guess if we take it for what it's worth, for what Hellebuyck said, he's just looking for a place to win as opposed to just someone that's going to pay him the most money.
Right.
That's the one deal that I think they have to figure out, much like the Tkachuk deal last year. Who's he willing to sign with an extension and have somewhat of the framework of what that is going to look like, and then work out a deal. Because I think if the Kings know that they can get a team, just for example, that they could get Hellebuck in there and they've got their horse for the next 5, 6, 7 years, whatever the case may be, it's a lot easier to justify trading a prospect with the upside of a guy like Quinton Byfield if you know you're going to have that done. That ain't happening for 1 year of any of the players that we talked about.
Yeah, and that's why I think, like, I mean, for a guy like Hellebuck, you almost have to trade him to a team that's new to sign and trade, right? Problem is, like, I mean, which team is that? Like, and so, like, those teams, like, you whittle down those teams. Like, you could think of Detroit, right? Would he want to go home, play for his hometown Red Wings, lead them back to the glory days of years
and
past?
Buffalo as well. I mean, listen, Buffalo's been also ran for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a team that I think you look at and say it is going in the right direction, and certainly will be something else. Scotty, listen, I got to run here. We got the Saw Band coming up right now, but I'll be looking forward to report on Diablo 4 next week. Hopefully you're able to get some sleep at some point, and we'll look forward. When are the results of the poll coming out in the Sun? Next week?
Yeah. So well, hopefully next week sometime. I mean, depending how, I got a lot to go through here. But hopefully, by middle to late next week, we're going to shut it down on Sunday. So that'll be the last day for responses, and then we'll go through there. Nice thing about these Google Docs or whatever, they actually they give you graphs and all these nice little pie charts and stuff like that of answers. So that's easy to go through. It's the mistake I made of letting people, and maybe not a mistake, but
all you need to do is you're just going to copy paste those final answers, and then you'll have probably about 80 pages of copy in the Sun that you can go for from there. Have a great one, man. Thanks for doing this.
Will do. Yeah. See you, Huss. Yeah.
All right. There is Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Yes, I mentioned a special visit from the man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, coming up in just a second. Folks, we're back at IG Field on Friday. Preseason football before the home opener next Friday. And, of course, if you're heading down to IG Field, you got to get there early and take in everything going on at the Princess Auto tailgate party outside the stadium before every Bomber game. Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations. You can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Well, we're coming out of May long weekend here, Memorial weekend south of the border, and of course, there's been a lot of yard work happening in and around these parts. If you need irrigation products or solutions for your property, talk to the experts at Consolidated Supply who are doing those same things for golf courses around Manitoba. They're also the artificial turf leaders. And speaking of golf, new and used golf carts. We've got other great options for your property. Hot tubs, amazing outdoor kitchen options, and, of course, small engine parts and repair. 1395 Niagara Road East is where to see them. And you can find out more online at cte.ca. And just before we bring in Hacksaw, if you're thinking about a great spot to watch the Cup Final on the weekend or the NBA Finals that begin tomorrow, you know it's Boston Pizza. If only we could get Hacksaw in person and get him a nice plate of those famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and maybe even a schooner or two. Unfortunately, we can't send a delivery to Hacksaw, but if you're around these parts, you can always order online as well at bostonpizza.com. Let's bring in the big guy himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, joining us. Saw, what's going on? How are you?
Hustler, can you hear me? Nice to be back with you.
You sound great. You're looking like $1 million US tax-free. Just another day in the life of Hacksaw. Just before I want to get to the offseason in the National Football League with some of the notebook, but I have to ask you, and you've been covering all of these leagues for a long time, how about the incredible run of South Florida teams right now? The 8-seed Panthers and the 8-seed Heat both playing in their championship series beginning this week. It's just like a bizarro world right now with what's going on. And of course, they're going up against number 1 seeds in their other conferences in the championship.
I think the most amazing thing, Andrew, is these teams had to claw their way into this. I mean, Florida went down to the final hours of the regular season. Were they in? Were they out? And they sure did look like a complete team, and they're really playing well. And how about the Miami Heat? I mean, they lost their play-in game, had to come back, play the second one, qualified, and have just kind of rocked and rolled through the competition, have beaten all the big boys along the way. So it's, I think the bottom line when you get to postseason play, and you can identify with this, are you healthy and are you hot? And if you got a hot goaltender like Florida does, Bobrovsky has been a huge difference maker. And Miami finally got all their guys back on the floor, the Heat. They're playing pretty well. So, yeah, I'm really surprised. I think in the big picture, I don't know who's going to watch the NBA Finals because I don't think as good as Denver is, Denver's not a national brand. And as good as Miami has become because Pat Riley is still there, I just don't think they're going to draw big TV ratings. And I've not had much time to check to find out what the hockey ratings are. But I can't imagine that this is a sexy matchup. Even though these two teams deserve to be there, there's no doubt Las Vegas is really good, though I don't think they get any national pub. I just don't know north of the border and in the big markets here in the States, is anybody paying attention to Miami versus Las Vegas in the Stanley Cup Finals? I will, you will, because we're hockey junkies, but I just don't know what the TV ratings are going to be like.
Yeah, it's a great question. Listen, from the NBA side of things, it certainly ain't Celtics Lakers, two historic teams. But I think the teams that deserve to be there are there. I mean,
hey, they earned it. They played their way in. They earned it. They're getting tremendous performances off the bench, off the boards, over the boards from different players. Kind of the unique, intangible thing about the NHL playoffs is, yeah, you have your stars like the Connor McDavids and the Dreisaitl's of the world. But I'll tell you what, your second and third line guys and your second pair, third pair on defense really makes a difference in a 7-game best of grind. And I'll tell you what, that's why you get all these heroes that show up in May and June in the NHL playoffs that you would not expect to be a guy that would pot a game-winning goal or a game-tying goal or come up with that. So it's fascinating to me, team chemistry, when you get to postseason play, because in hockey, just like the NBA, if you got guys over the boards, off the bench, that are difference makers or get red hot, they can carry a team.
Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with us here. Lee, just before we move off the finals, the one thing that is is really interesting to me is that the Panthers, you mentioned the hot goalie. I mean, Bobrovsky was just completely out of his mind. I do wonder what that layoff does to Florida, whether he can kind of get back to where he was, after being off for a week and a half. And on the other side, the fact that the Nuggets are at home, they swept, they have all of this rest. I think the rest is going to help the Nuggets a heck of a lot more than it might help the Panthers in this series. And I think the Miami Heat, for their part, would have loved to have ended their series a little earlier when they had the opportunity to do that and not get pushed to the brink before going to Denver at altitude to begin the series tomorrow.
Yeah, you checked off all the boxes. Although the NHL playoffs are such a brutal grind. I mean, I grant you 10 days off is a lot, but those Panthers really needed that. And from the Miami-Denver perspective, you worry about rhythm, and I don't know if the word rust is the correct thing, because Denver's kind of roared through its playoff series and has had significant rest between each series. But think about this. Miami grinds through 7, gets on the plane, goes from Boston back home, gets to practice maybe a day and a half, has to get on the plane, go to Denver, face a rested Nuggets team in thin air. That's an enormous challenge, on top of all the matchup challenges that I think the Heat are going to have against Joker and the rest of the Nuggets. So it'll be a fascinating series. I don't know that Miami's the best team, but Boston had the chance, didn't get there. Philadelphia got hurt. Milwaukee got bumped early because of Giannis's injury problems. And, of course, out west here, the Lakers really finished up on a roll. The Clippers had 2 superstars. They couldn't keep their guys on the floor. So I'm not sure the best teams are playing, but these are the guys we're going to watch this weekend.
I'm looking forward to it. Lee, big news last week in the National Football League. We'd heard trade rumors about DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona with a number of teams. Obviously, it didn't come to fruition. He was then cut, like one of the top receivers, most productive guys. Why was he cut, and what's next for DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, Arizona wanted to get rid of him. He's not played well the last 2 years. He had 42 and 64 receptions in the last 2 seasons in Arizona. Prior to that, he had 3 straight years of over 100 catches. Arizona has just completely fallen apart. And how bad do they want to rid themselves of this guy? And I'm not going to say he's a malingerer, but boy, he sure missed a lot of time. They ate $22 million. They took a $22 million cap hit just to get him off the books. Now, this is awful late in the game, and here's the problem that Hopkins is going to have. Can he bounce back and be healthy and be what he was before? Yeah, possibly, Andrew. But you know what? Nobody's got cap space. Buffalo, I think, has $1.1 million cap space. Kansas City's got $650,000. I think New England might have $3 million. This guy wants an O.J. Beckham contract of $15 million. I don't know where he's going to go at this late date because everybody has spent their cap space. The only team that I'm aware of that's really got breathing room to do something creative, and this may be where he lands, is Baltimore. Lamar Jackson restructured his contract. He got the new deal. His cap figure went down. They did spend $15 million on Beckham. They've got young guys. They've got almost $12 million cap space. So they might be the one that's hidden behind the curtain and might reach out and grab this guy and bring him in. But what kind of DeAndre Hopkins receiver are you going to get? He's just not the same guy anymore by virtue of being dinged up a lot. So, yeah, if they had traded him prior to the draft, but they couldn't find any takers because nobody wanted the contract. And that's the big issue.
Yeah, that cap space is a real thing because everyone thought, oh, look how good he would look catching passes from Mahomes or Josh Allen. The numbers don't work right now, and that's why nothing has happened so far. Speaking of the cap, we've been waiting for more shoes to drop when it comes to quarterback contracts. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, franchise players for both the Chargers and the Bengals. Lee, what are you hearing about extending those two players and basically giving them the keys to the castle?
Well, like everything else in football, the next quarterback gets a big deal based on what the last guy just got. And we saw what Jalen Hurts just got from Philadelphia just prior to the National Football League draft. Burrows will get signed. It's a big issue because Cincinnati historically has been cheap. Mike Brown has not spent money, but he's going to have to spend probably on the average of $50 million to keep Joe Burrows. I think that will get done. I think the Chargers, who have a small money owner who does not have a lot of wealth, they got a problem because they're up against the cap. And next year, they got so many guys with big money cap figures. Some of these guys are going to disappear. And I don't know whether it's Khalil Mack or it's their star wide receiver, Keenan Allen, or the younger wide receiver, Mike Williams. They have so many guys that are earning 20 to 30 million cap figures next season. That's going to be a big issue going forward. General Manager Tom Telesco just yesterday indicated that he had private conversations with Justin Herbert's agent and with Justin Herbert. And Telesco's philosophy, Hustler, is the player deserves to get his value, but the player must understand I have to retain money so I can put good players around that player getting his value. So that becomes a big issue as to whether it's $50 million for Justin Herbert, whether it's a lot deferred down road, how is it structured? Because the Chargers, they got to add more players to put around the quarterback. I think their offense is going to be spectacular. I think their defense, as we sit here on a Wednesday afternoon, is really deficient because they've let so many guys go. So keep an eye on that. These guys are headed to the final year of their regular contract, and now's the time we're going to negotiate out the deal. I would think by opening day, they'll both have contracts. Just how they're structured is the big burning question.
Lee, speaking of quarterback situations, Jimmy G goes to Oakland. It sounds like he's damaged goods. And what are the chances of a minority owner? What are the rules around a minority owner playing for a team that he's got a piece of? And you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about TB12. I understand it. Let's understand two things. Tom Brady, I think, is done with football. He is 45. I think the wear and tear factor has just finally collected its tolls at the booth on Tom Brady. And I think he's off into other ventures. I mean, he's becoming a part owner of the Raiders. He begins his work with the media, with Fox. He is investing in a lot of different companies and firms. I think he goes to his next chapter of his life, much like Peyton Manning did. The Garoppolo thing is really weird. Nobody's been able to delineate whether the agent Don Yee was not truthful with Dave Ziegler, the Raiders general manager, when they're negotiating the deal. Did Yee know that Garoppolo might need another surgery on the foot? That never came up in the conversation. They gave him an $11 million signing bonus. They gave him $11 million per year. Now this week, when the story finally leaks out that they had reservations and there were issues, and he did have a second surgery on the foot, and he's not ready for camp, and they don't know what he'll be like in July, and that's why they flipped the contract over, and they took away, and the agent agreed to do this. The agent took away the $11 million signing bonus. He tacked it onto a salary. It'll be $22 million if Garoppolo is totally healthy, but it's not guaranteed. And that could be that at the end of the day, if Garoppolo fails his physical in July or has to go on injured reserve because he's not ready to play, they might release him. Now, that's stupid on the Raiders' part, excuse me, unless the Raiders did not know that Garoppolo might still be damaged goods, because now the Raiders have no quarterback. I mean, they got Brian Hoyer, and they got the kid that they drafted late, and they have no established starting quarterback. Now, there may be some guys out there you could trade for, but the Raiders have really put themselves in a bad position, or did the agent put the Raiders in a bad position to get the contract for Jimmy G? I mean, we're sitting here almost June 1st. This story is far, far from complete nor told.
Just while we're on with quarterbacks, I want to focus in on the NFC South for a minute. And I was just sitting here thinking that in the NFC South, the longest tenured quarterback on opening day is going to be Desmond Ridder of the Falcons, who I think played, the last 3 games of last season. You've got the number 1 overall pick in Carolina, Derek Carr taking over with the Saints, and of course, TB12 gone from Tampa, and Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield going at it for the starting job. This has to be the most wide open division in the entire league, because I don't think anyone knows what we're going to get from any of these teams, Lee.
Yeah, I concur wholeheartedly. It's strange. Let me run through a laundry list because the OTAs are going on right now, and I'll just give you a quick response on each of them. The rookie quarterbacks obviously are under the spotlight. Bryce Young in Carolina is getting virtually all the snaps with the number 1 unit, has done really well. I think they're really pleased with his growth. Now, nobody's talking about the fact he's a 190-pound quarterback that might get tossed around like a rag doll. But I firmly believe you put these guys in an NFL environment, weight training, nutrition, they'll be able to bulk them up as the season goes along, as long as they don't get them killed early. But so far, so good on Bryce Young. In Houston, I don't understand this. C.J. Stroud has only taken about a third of the snaps with the number 1 unit. Davis Mills, the veteran, who's not had a lot of success, I think his record's 5-22 as a starter, he's taken the bulk of the snaps in Houston with the number 1 unit. I would have thought they would have fast-forwarded crash course C.J. Stroud to be the starter. Now, maybe they're showcasing Mills because maybe they're going to trade him. Hell, maybe Mills winds up in Las Vegas if the Jimmy G story does not work out. The other weird one is Will Levis, who sat on the draft board that whole first night, and Levis wound up going to Tennessee later. He's third string. I don't understand how he could be third string after you spent a draft pick to get him on that second day. They've still got Ryan Tannehill under contract. They have the other number 1 pick they drafted from Liberty a couple years ago, who hardly played at all last year and was not impressive. And the other storyline is in Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson has really been impressive in the Colts workouts. You and I haven't done a notebook segment in a couple of weeks because I've been on the road and you were doing an autopsy on the Jets. But I will tell you that the kid is spending 11 hours a day in the facility with the other quarterbacks, with the offensive coordinator, and with the coaching staff. The kid is like a gym rat, and they've been really, really impressed. Now, they've implemented and put the offense in and all that. It'll be interesting just to see going forward how he's going to do when the bullets start flying for real in preseason. But of all the guys, Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson pretty much are really front and center. And in terms of the other situations, you got Derek Carr in New Orleans, who is kind of came in and grabbed the locker room by control, has really showed that he's got leadership capabilities. And in Tampa, they got Trask, the young guy, There may be the rental in Baker Mayfield, but Mayfield's been really impressive working on his own with their wide receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the tight ends, and then going into the OTAs and looking like he's ready for opening day. He's got something to prove along the way too. So a lot of really unique storylines involving quarterbacks around the league right now, including all those kids at the top of the draft board.
No doubt about it. Hacksaw, always great having you on the program. Before we go, who you got in the Cup final and who you got winning the NBA?
I'll tell you what, I really like Las Vegas. I think they're so good, so skilled. They are really deep. And obviously, new coaching staff has maybe changed the philosophy of things. A lot of respect for Florida to grind their way to get to this point in time. And in turn, the NBA, I'm just so fascinated by Jokic. You look at the Joker and you think he's just a big oaf. He doesn't run the floor real well. He can't jump. But dude has got peripheral vision. It's unbelievable. His passing skills are amazing. In the playoffs, Andrew, he's averaging 32 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists a game. And everybody knows the offense runs through Jokic, and everybody defends Jokic, and Jokic still puts up those numbers. So, I'm an old ABA guy, and Denver once upon a time had a great ABA team, the red, white, and blue basketballs and the cheerleaders in bikinis and three-point shots and slam dunk contests. So I'm kind of rooting for Denver. Great respect for Eric Spoelstra, what he has done over the many, many years with Pat Riley and how he's rebuilt this thing. Just don't know that Miami's got enough weapons to be able to defend all the stuff that Denver's going to throw at them, by the way, at altitude.
Yeah, great point. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know you'll be all over the series in both sports, off-season and much more. Fill people in on what's cooking over at LeeHacksawHamilton.com.
Well, we write a ton on my website every day. It's all written, and now we have the new podcast, and it's your fault because you taught me how to do this. Our podcast is just blowing up. I don't know how it works. I do the content. I do the graphics. It works. It's absolutely amazing. And by the way, this must be true because it's out there on Twitter, and we always know that everything on Twitter is true, right?
100%.
This trade, Boston Pizza, for me coming up for a couple days to host your show when you're on holiday, is that true?
That it is on the table, and Lee, we've got some of our favorite Little Brown Jug suds for you. We'll have the 1919 rack of the generic lagers as well for you. So it would be great. It would be great to get you up and actually to see the beasts of the West, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, get out to a game. Have you ever been to a CFL game?
No, watched a lot of it on TV. Never been north of the border when they've been playing because I've been broadcasting NFL games during that chunk of time, but follow it all the time. Would sure like to see more of the American college quarterbacks go to the CFL and find their niche and become something, because I still think the Canadian League offers a great alternative to those kids that are right on the brink, not good enough to be in the NFL, but good enough to play. But it's three-down football. It's really different. I've talked to a lot of guys that have gone up there, and it's sometimes it's like walking on the moon for them. It's really hard.
It's the unfinished business tour for the Bombers after losing that Grey Cup so narrowly and avoiding the looking to do a three-peat. It all gets going for real a week Friday. And I know you'll be able to catch those games south of the border. Lee, have a great one. Let's do this again soon. Be well.
Hustler, catch up to you again. Be well. Thanks for the time.
Good stuff. There is the man himself, the legendary Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with the Hacksaw notebook. Nothing better than that. Oh, he's got the saws out in the chat as well. Everyone loving a nice visit, midweek visit from Lee himself. Hey, Bomber game, as we said. For Friday is the preseason game. A week Friday is the home opener. As I just mentioned to Lee, huge news from our friends at Little Brown Jug, because the big news is blue and gold. Little Brown Jug excited to announce the beginning of a multi-year partnership with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, naming Little Brown Jug as an official partner. And what this means for you is that our Winnipeg's favorite local beer, the iconic 1919, is going to be available for Blue Bomber fans at the park beginning on Friday. Of course, if you want to try 1919, the generic, the rather, everything that Little Brown Jug has cooking right now with a bunch of new beers for summer, you got to get down to the tap room over on William Avenue. Check out that amazing patio they built last year. And, of course, you can also order online at littlebrownjug.ca. And while you're getting ready for Bomber season, How's your bomber gear looking? Well, before you head down to the university, step on over to Royal Sports at 750 Pembina, Manitoba's #1 sports superstore, and get your blue on. A ton of great bomber gear, including a number of exclusive pieces that you won't find anywhere else. Hats and more, all ready for you just in time for the start of the season. Of course, while you're there, you can check out their huge Jet selection, NHL, NFL, Blue Jays and Major League Baseball, international soccer, and so much more. And of course, spring stocks arriving daily. Soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, a huge selection of disc golf gear as well, and portable targets to play wherever you're on the run. And of course, a massive selection of bikes. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. And the goalie show is coming back, I believe, the 23rd and 24th. Follow their Instagram for more details on that. But if you've been waiting for the big goalie event, it's back this year after being off for a few years because of a certain thing that basically shut everything down over the course of that. Got to thank our friends at Breezy Bend for their support. Course is just looking absolutely mint right now. What a great place to play. If you're thinking about making Breezy your long-term home for you and your family, get on that waiting list right now for next season. Give them a call, 895-7206. Talk to our pal Corey Johnson. He'll get you on that list and tell you more about what membership at Breezy is all about. And of course, you can also find out more online at breezybend.ca. Memorial Tournament on the PGA Tour gets going tomorrow, hosted by the legendary Jack Nicklaus. We did hit the picks for Coolbet on today's Lock Shop for the Memorial. Check that out on YouTube at Lock Shop Bets or Lock Shop, wherever you get your favorite pods. And I do have to thank our friends at Aikens Lake. I cannot wait to get out there this year. Fishing season is back. If you're looking for a world-class getaway for a corporate trip or friends and family, nowhere better than Aikens. You can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, and as great as the world-class fishing is, the world-class hospitality is even better. Find out more online at aikenslake.com, and you can also hit them up on Twitter for more info. Talk to our pal Pitt over at Aikens Lake. All right, let's get Remo back in here, and Reem, no live racing tonight at Assiniboia Downs, but next week, Wednesdays are back, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. How did you make out last night at the track for our head-to-head pick selections?
Good. I need that Wednesday racing. So I'm lost without it. I want to get revenge. I did not do well yesterday. I was over. I was over 3. My horse, Drizzy, finished 3rd. I had put half of my allotted wagering dollars for last night on Drizzy. The horse that won that race, I think, was a 30-1 or something. I couldn't believe Drizzy lost to such a long shot. So I'm already scouting for next week, already for Monday.
Excellent. I think I'm making an appearance at the track next week for sure, before everything gets real crazy in June. I've got to get out there for that buffet. And we'll have to plan another event with some of our listeners like we did last year. That was such a good time. I think who won those tickets? T-Kona Pauly was there.
Ooh,
Bridget was there.
Yeah, M. Sheldon was there.
Yeah, that's right. That was a lot of fun. So anyways, we'll set something up in the coming weeks. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is live racing now that we've got through these first couple weeks of the season. Find out more online at asdowns.com for a little bit more. And hey, just before we get to our the Coolbet Lines, because there's lots going on right now, we should check in with the Gold Eyes, and tough start to their series last night in Rosemont, dropping a 3-2 run to actually that was a day game a little earlier today, losing 3-2 to the Chicago Dogs on a bit of a getaway day. I love the Chicago Dogs.
The best name and logo.
Yeah, and the great uniforms as well. But anyways, Gold Eyes finishing up this road trip into the weekend and then back at home for another homestand beginning on next Tuesday. And a week Saturday, the 10th, is the next fireworks night. So if you do like to bring the family out when they're banging the Archangel fireworks after the game, that's the day to do it. Of course, this weather every day is great when you're at the ballpark. Find out more at goldeyes.com on all their upcoming promotions. And of course, you can get tickets as well at goldeyes.com. All right. Kind of slow right now for, well, hockey and basketball betting. Although, unfortunately, Reem, I just kept on turning around, keeping my eye on the TV. Leila Annie Fernandez just dropping a heartbreaker in the third set, not advancing past the second round, where she was hoping to join Canadian Bianca Andreescu in moving on at Roland Garros.
Yeah, TSN, they do have great coverage of the majors, and whenever I turn on one of their 5 channels, and I'm sure more on their streaming, has it. So nice to see Bianca advance. Tough for Leila Annie Fernandez. So I'm looking forward. So Bianca's in action tomorrow morning, 9:15. So I will be tuned into that as we get ready for the show.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going down this list here. Yeah, she's taken on Navarro.
Yes.
Oh, and Bianca's a pretty big favorite, -189 for tomorrow after a big upset win a little earlier on. Seems like she's healthy, which is the number one concern with Bianca. Playing well, and she certainly does raise her game coming up at the majors. Chapo, a winner earlier today in his match to continue moving on at Roland Garros as well.
I was just going to add in, Bianca, she's battled injuries for so many years just after what she won the U.S. Open. She's on and off the court, not even ranked. I just type her into Wikipedia because I'm looking for the match schedule. She's only 22 years old. Turns 23 in June. Seems like she's been around forever, but is just getting started here. So she's having a birthday in 2 weeks, but still young, and I see her healthy and putting up some wins.
Yeah, well, tennis majors are back. We may have to hook up with John Horn over the next week or two to talk about what's going on. Great news for Chapo is he won. The bad news for Chapo, he didn't get a great draw because he is a 16-1 underdog taking on number 1 seed Carlos Alcaraz Garcia of Spain, sort of the next one after Rafa Nadal and the number 1 seed. Although it just went down a little bit. People are on Chapo now at plus 1350, just as I'm watching that number go down. Alcaraz went from -33.33 to still -2,500. A huge favorite. As we mentioned, Stanley Cup playoffs get going on Saturday. Vegas a -133 favorite in game number 1 and a -132 favorite for the series. Florida Panthers +112 for the series and +112 on the road in game number 1. And as far as the NBA playoffs, the Nuggets are massive favorites against the Miami Heat. -382 for the series. Heat to win. Another big upset. Can they keep it rolling? +285. Not quite the +405 they were to beat the Celtics, but pretty damn close. I'm actually liking Denver in 4 or 5 games for this one. So we're going to get +140 on Nuggets -2.5 for the series. And of course, as I mentioned, the Memorial Tournament begins tomorrow. 2 clear favorites, Scotty Scheffler at +650, John Rahm at +750, Patrick Cantlay at 11-1, Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele, the only 2 other players lower than 20-1. They're both at 15. And we do have an exclusive we put together from the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. We've got 2, actually. One is for the 2 finals. Denver Nuggets -2.5, as I mentioned. So Nuggets to win in 4 or 5. And the Stanley Cup Final to go over 5.5 games. So 6 or 7 in the finals. That one is now at +285. And we do have a Lock Shop bet for the Partner Parlay. It's 10-1. Patrick Cantlay, top 10. Ricky Fowler and Tyrrell Hatton both to be in the top 20. That one is +1,000. That is live as well over with our friends at Coolbet. And by the way, if you are a big CFL fan, we're getting more and more individual season player props for the year in the CFL section. So get on over to that. Dusty and I are going to spend a little bit of time with a few of our favorites on tomorrow's Lock Shop, as we won't have one on Fridays. He'll be traveling in, getting ready to broadcast the Bombers and the Riders from IG Field.
Dusty, that's awesome. Nice to see him back. He's basically like the TV play-by-play voice of the Bombers most of the time.
Pretty much.
He's a lot here, so I have to hook up with him at some point. But yeah, he's clicking on the props. I'm getting ready for CFL fantasy. They got Dalton Schoen here over 1,200 yards. Can he repeat his season? And Kenny Lawler's there now. I'm curious how this is all gonna work out. That's an interesting one. But yeah, some great. There's Nick Dembski receiving yards, 950. Like, who's gonna get all these yards? What's Kenny Lawler's? 1,000? Like, you'd have to take over on Kenny Lawler 1,000 yard season, right?
I might take under on everybody. To be honest.
Yeah, that's not
because
bad.
guys can get hurt. And then the other thing is that with this, like with the lineup that they've got with Schoen, with Dembski, with Kenny Lawler, there's only so many balls to go around. And if you are as confident in the Bombers being a winning team as I am, a lot of times you're probably not even in passing situations. So I think the stats might take a bit of a hit. I don't think they'll take a hit in the win column right now. But anyways, check all those out. Hey, before we go, some Jets off-season news. There's nothing you enjoy more than checking Instagram for the latest on what Jets are doing. And this is actually technically now, I guess, a former Jet. But Leon Gavanka flashing the silver medal from that incredible run that he and the Germans had. And he, of course, played a big, big role in that for his homeland.
Yeah, let me switch accounts so I can pull it up, because I don't follow him on my personal account, but I follow him on the Winnipeg Sports Talk account for work purposes. But yeah, shout out to Leon Gavanka. He left the Jets. He had that article where he said he ripped his ass open for the team.
Yeah.
Was that the line?
That was the quote from the German paper. Yeah.
According to Google Translate. So he won the silver medal, and shout out to Germany. I know, like, when you get the silver medal after losing, it was kind of a tough situation there. But hey, good for them. I don't know how many medals they've won at the World. I don't think it's too many, but that's a pretty big accomplishment, beating Team USA on the way there. So he was having their party here, and I'm gonna pull it up here. Leon Gavanka. What's the etiquette? He's got a private Instagram account, Huss. You have to be approved to follow him. I follow him on the Winnipeg Sports Talk. He approved us. He's got 5,000 followers. Can I show this on our stream, or is that
I think so. As long as it's not a I think he posted it for a reason. I'm pretty sure he's somewhat proud of the silver medal, thus the social media post. So yeah, I don't think that there's any violation or foul.
Okay. Just wanted to, there he is.
Oh, is that with Big Mo Sider?
Yeah. So that's,
man, what I would do to get that guy on the Jets.
He's a solid player, so. And you have to, Germany, you remember Germany? They almost won the gold at the Olympics against OAR in Pyeongchang?
OAR.
Remember that?
The Olympic athletes from Russia?
That's correct. So, Germany, they're up and coming hockey nation. They didn't even have Leon Draisaitl in there. So, shout out to Leon Gavanka, former member of the Jets organization.
Yeah, you got it. Now, there was one other thing that we wanted to get to. And I just seen this from the notes. So explain this to me. The Jets have put some playoff hoodies on sale on the eBay store. Fill me in on this.
Okay, so the Jets have this eBay store, and we went over it after the series versus Vegas, where you could have bid on. We talked about buying the Michael Amadio puck that he scored the overtime winner in and blowing it up. Although I don't think you can. I don't think pucks are destructible. I looked it up. It's really hard. And they had with the Adam Lowry game time goal puck. You could have bought those. So now, I guess they're clearing out the locker room, and you can go on their eBay store. Would you want to get a Dylan DeMello locker room worn hoodie from this playoff year? I don't know. It's got number 2 on it. I don't know if that would fit. I have to find the right guy that would fit. Like, where's Axel Jonsson Fjallby's hoodie? I think I could squeeze into his. Do you want the
who else do we have?
Neil Pionk's hoodie? You want Neil Pionk's
locker number 4?
Locker room worn number 4. There's Dylan. You can get his. Oh, Nemesnikov's hat. Oh man, what a trade deadline pickup he was. I would actually get that. I could wear it on the show us. Be like, hey, this is a Vlad Nemestikov worn hat. So the Jets.
Does it say what sizes they are?
That one's adjustable. I'm assuming it's one size fits all. But yeah, there's Nemestikov's hoodie.
Yeah, the hoodies. Does it say what size the hoodies are?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see the Vlad Nemestikov hoodie. We'll just click on the description. Like, how awesome would this be to have in your personal collection? This is like, you could go look at the press conferences and like say, hey, he wore that in that press conference. I own that hoodie. How awesome would that be? Where's the Bones hoodie from the year-end post Game 5 press conference? Is that available?
I want to buy the jacket he was wearing for the post game after Game 5.
Okay,
a piece of Winnipeg Jets history.
Okay, so Vlad is a size large, has screened on playoffs graphics. The May shown signs of use. I'm not sure if I could like pick it up from the office. Then I could, because shipping items, I've learned I've had to ship out Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodies available on our store on our website. It's not cheap to ship out a hoodie. I wonder if they would let me go pick it up. I don't know. Are the people from the Jets listening to this?
I'm sure you could probably pick it up at the pro shop or something.
I should call. I should email them to find out.
Do me a favor. Check what size is the Brendan Dillon? Who are the biggest players? Yeah.
Well, what about Saku? Saku's a big dude.
Yeah, okay, we'll check them both.
Oh, there's Lowry's. Lowry's hoodie. His is going for more. People have bid on that.
Oh, yeah.
Gustafson. What about, we should get Ken the Gus Bus one as a gift. Man,
that's a great idea.
Oh, Carson.
Although Ken's a big J. Ken's big J. He could never be in possession of any sort of something that would seemingly to compromise his big J integrity.
Ken's too much of a professional to rock a Gus Bus locker room worn hoodie. But there's Appleton, Blake Wheeler. Oh, someone's got Blake Wheeler. That's got a bid. 2 bids on Ehlers. Locker room worn as he was getting ready to prepare to play for game.
How long are these things being bid till? What's the timing?
The hoodies have like 2 days and 5 hours left, so there's not a lot of time. Not a lot of time left. Riddick, locker room. Oh, there's Axel's hat. They got that. Oh, what about this one? Oskari Salmonen. Remember? But did he back up for a game?
Yes, that's
and
the Oskari Salmonen locker room worn playoff hoodie.
Oh, there's Hellebuck. Man, there's a lot of hats.
Ooh,
like did the hats? Here's Kyle Connor's hat. Did the hats have like a number on them?
Hellebuck 152. I'm not sure.
I don't know if it does. Are we just going to trust the Jets that this is Kyle Connor's hat? Oh, no, it says it's got a little 81 there in the corner.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Cool.
That's pretty cool, actually. And it's got the playoff logo.
I thought those are nice. I didn't like the bills on those hats very much.
No, this bill is dumb. I don't like it either.
Everything else is pretty cool. Again, it's only $30 though. So
yeah, no, I know for locker room worn apparel, I would pay $30.
I'm gonna have to put the link in the chat in case people want to check.
Here's the link in the chat.
I will be checking it out.
Ben Howard says he's gonna bid. He's posted in we have a Discord server, where people who are in the chat, we can chat, when we're not live, and there's a memorabilia section. He's posted some good stuff in the memorabilia section. I've added some stuff in there too, so fun way for us to stay connected. But here, I'll post it in the chat. Oh, Slamberg's hoodie. Shifley's hoodie's going for a bit. Interesting to see who gets bid on too. Nino.
Absolutely.
Here, we want Big Stan. What size? You want to know what size his hoodie is?
Yeah. What's Big Stan? He's probably a double X. He's that big.
He's XL. Are you going to rock one? Because I know you have that Game Worn Party jersey. This would be a nice add to your collection.
To go along with my Game Worn Party.
Vlad's large. This is our off-season. It's mid-June, or not even June, and this is what we're talking about. Oh, here's Axel's hoodie. I could rock an Axel. We have room in the WST budget for this one.
Oh, man. Yeah, that might be a personal.
He's a large.
Remis.
Imagine open in the show and you're wearing one of these hoodies for the next one.
I would be down. I'm definitely going to check it out, see what we've got there.
Arvid Holm.
in the meantime, the Arvid Holm, I just laughed. The Oskari Salminen, who has never played in a game, but does have a.
He was in the locker room. Here's PLD's hoodie. He's an XL.
That could be the last thing Dubois does. Is that might be the last piece of Jets thing that he took off. In fact,
exactly. I think you'd want to have that.
It's an artifact from the old days. All right. Anyways, good stuff today. Thanks to Billeck, Hacksaw, and really enjoyed having Rod Pedersen on the show today. Of course, not much going on tonight. We got Blue Jays and the Milwaukee Brewers. We got some tennis happening. Tomorrow, NBA Finals get going, and then Saturday night, Game 1, Las Vegas and the Florida Panthers going at it for hockey's holy grail. We'll get ready for Bomber season as well. Ken's going to join us tomorrow, so we will have some more Jets off-season talk. Brandon's going to join us on Friday when some of the fellows are out on the golf course, and of course, we'll also get ready for the Cup Final. Mike Zeisberger is going to join us in the next couple days. He had a really interesting piece, one-on-one interview with Matthew Tkachuk at NHL.com. And we'll also talk a little Bombers ahead of the game on Friday to finish up the preseason for Winnipeg hosting Saskatchewan. Thanks again to everyone that was with us today. If you're with us on YouTube, make sure you've subscribed and hit that thumbs up on your way out. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk, where to find us live every day at 1 o'clock here on YouTube. And we'll look forward to catching you tomorrow afternoon. Enjoy the weather, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you tomorrow on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.